Salvete discipuli. That's Latin for hello, students. Today we're going to be covering the present imperative active, the vocative address phrase, de plus ablative separation or about phrase, depending on context, and talk about negative imperatives and adverb questions. Let's begin. Interjections. Oh, I don't know. That's not interjections. That's conjunction. And speech we need are adverbs, conjunctions, interjections, nouns, prepositions, and verbs. And here's the syntax of the present imperative in Latin. Now, we saw this already in Greek, but here we go. As you see, shortened vowels. Lauda, laudate, vide, videte, mitte, mittite, cape, capite, audi, audite. Now, there are irregulars to worry about. Dic, dicite, duc, ducite, fac, facite, fair, ferte, este, noli, and nolite. That one we're going to come back to about don't want. Imperative mood is for giving direct commands. It's always second person, either singular or plural. For example, in the sentence here, we look for the verb. Second singular, present imperative. Simple aspect, no tense, volative mood. That's used for commands, active plus subject phrase. No questions. Look at your command. Curre. Second singular, imperative, run. You also know it's a command because you have exclamation point. Again, another command, ite, go. Nice command. There's your sexy distractor, but Claudia, comma, is only in the singular. Let's talk about that, what we just saw. The vocative looks just like the nominative, except for second declension and second declension I stem in the singular. Therefore, you end up with, instead of hortus, you end up with horte, gladius, gladii. Every other vocative looks just like the nominative. Vocative is used for address phrase, direct to someone. Nominative, except when and is used to address someone directly. Son. So here we have a whole thing together. Wenny. What? That looks like first singular, Reverend Greg. You know, iis diet imisis deserunt. Yeah, if it was, it'd have a long mark right here. It'd have V sucks. It's not. So therefore, it's second singular present imperative active of a fourth conjugation verb. Speak, not speak. Come. So what do we have? We have commas right here. We have a second singular verb and commas. That tells us we're looking for the vocative, which is, what, Brutus, do you want? So in this one, we see Claude, imperative, second singular. We have a comma that indicates we're dealing with a vocative address phrase. Remember, Lucius is an I stem, therefore it's Luci. And the vocative singular is me amice. Vocative address phrase, same as in Greek, real easy. All right, let's go on to the infinitive, which we've seen in Greek, but here it is in Latin. And they all end up with re. Laudare, videre, mittere, capere, audire. Infinitive. And it's going to be translated as to send. You see that in the difference between mitte, because that's the imperative, that's going to have a volative mood. Otherwise, it looks a lot alike and acts a lot alike. Well, not really. Neither of them signify tense. See that A at the end? That R before the E tells you it's a perfect, translated as to. Now that's a fun one. I can tell. Oh, Reverend Greg, I don't make any sense on that one. It's an infinitive because it's two verbs, can and tell. One's got to be subordinate. And there's a nice one. Now, we won't be seeing a lot of the infinitive in the narrative, but it will be on the tests because the National Latin talk, for some reason, about the arcane but always found on the National Latin exam negative imperative. The negative imperative, when you say someone don't do something, well, Latin uses ne plus the imperative, but not on National Latin tests. They choose this 10% of the time usage, and they're going to make it 100% of the time for you. Therefore, I want my students to do well, and I want you to have the options. Therefore, we're going to stretch it. Let's look at your verb noli. Remember we said put a pin in noli? Well, there it is. It's a second. And that's going to be a simple volative active. So an imperative and an infinitive. Do not to touch me. Negative imperatives on the National Latin exam are always noli or nolite plus the infinitive. An easy construction, and we have lots of practice questions, but be aware. Okay, negative command, good. Noli. Noli looks good. Except that's the sexy distractor because it says it's a plural. Therefore, nolite. Same idea. It's the equivalent of don't. And of course, do not give. One last thing before we close out. I know it's been a long lecture. Let's talk about adverb question words. We've seen those already. Who, be, where, or when. We've seen kur, why. Now we have to add a new standard called the adverb question. Not the adverb interrogative, kur and ubi, but num, which is a question word expecting a no. Surely you are not sleeping. Why? No, I'm not. Be aware, these are a different standard. Kur, of course, easy. Why? Oh my goodness, Reverend Greg, what did you do to us? Knowledge of 3 weeks ago. That would be the imperfect. Now acabamos. I thought it was going to be were being. Yeah, could do that, but it's also used to. And then, of course, well, that's all there is in grammar, students. Did a great job. This is an interesting chapter. We are getting really close to all the knowledge we need for the National Latin exam. So I'm very proud of my students. And if there's any questions, remember, there's always office hours.